natural resources that were sent from the Soviet Union to Germany, they were crucial for the German war effort. According to calculations, if the Soviet Union would have not helped Nazi Germany, starting from the invasion of Poland, Nazi Germany would have ran out of the most crucial natural resources for their war effort, meaning oil especially, but also other types of natural resources that you need in industry and in the industrial production of wartime levels of weapons, and also food, as the British naval embargo on Nazi Germany was from September 1st, from the invasion of Poland, was complete. There was nothing coming in through the Atlantic Sea or really the Mediterranean either. So instead, they were saved by the Soviet Union, through which the Trans-Siberian Railway was sending natural resources and food even from Mongolia. So they would have lasted 10, 11 months. Would there have been an attack from the West? For example, the invasion of France would have been greatly complicated by the lack of natural resources. And had there been a strong French-British joint pushback, probably Nazi Germany would have lost that war by late 1940 or maybe 1941. But instead, the Soviets, you could say, they put the Nazis on life support, and the war would continue for much longer. And naturally, for the Soviet Union, it would also end with 20 or 25 million dead. But on the other hand, they gained territorial...
Indeed, and dominated this part of Europe for many years,
yes, so
at least 40 years.
Absolutely. So in that way, maybe it was better after all for the Soviet Union that they did keep the war going, so to say. However, in that August crisis between the two states was quickly solved. In October, Italy and Japan signed the tripartite agreement with Nazi Germany, creating the Axis power. And Germany was actually enticing the Soviet Union to join it and creating a four-part pact instead. The Germans were trying to sell it by telling the Soviets that they would give them a free hand to advance further south, meaning through Iran, Afghanistan, into British-controlled areas at the moment. And the Russians had, since the 19th century and the Great Game in Central Asia, they had this urge to advance as far down south as in to reach finally that warm water port on the Indian Ocean. So technically their goal was to advance all the way down to Pakistan and getting a port down there. And actually there they would have had to, because at that point Pakistan was still part of British India. So they were definitely trying to get, the Nazis were trying to get the Soviets to continue focusing their war effort against Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. So basically fighting against the UK. The Soviets didn't buy it. They thought about it. There were some proposals sent back and forth, but in the end, it came to nothing. And finally, after that winter, 1940 turned into 1941, and then you have this intensified. Finally, of course, the Nazis had failed with their Operation Seelöwe or Sea Lion. The invasion of the British Isles failed to materialize. The Battle of Britain was lost, and finally Adolf Hitler started thinking solely, practically, about invading the Soviet Union, which he finally did on June 22nd, 1941, with Operation Barbarossa, launching the largest invasion in human history up until this day, and also starting the most intense part of the Second World War, war on a scale that the world had never seen before nor since. And this is where the cozy relations between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany ended. It could also be just worth mentioning that in the lead up to the invasion, another issue that complicated relations between the Soviet Union and the Germans was the fact that there was a large German minority living in the Soviet Union. You had the so-called Volga Germans, you had the Germans in Azerbaijan, in Georgia, in parts of Ukraine. Stalin, as with other nations, they had been suppressed during the 1930s. The Germans were never really treated as harshly as the Poles, for example, or the Ukrainians or Central Asian nations in the Soviet Union. But nevertheless, they also faced some persecution. And when the invasion in 1941 happened by Nazi Germany, the Soviets had already prepared lists of all ethnic Germans living within a 150 or 200 kilometer patch along the border. Quickly, they deported more than 1 million Germans to the depths of Siberia, Kazakhstan, and other parts of the Soviet Union to make sure that they wouldn't be able to fraternize with the enemy. So those were some issues that were also complicating Nazi and Soviet relations. But finally, it was that massive invasion on June 22nd, 1941 that finally put an end to cooperation. There was also interesting cooperation taking place long before the war, immediately after the First World War, but I think that is something we will have to...
Another day, but thank you for that very interesting canter through the course. Thank you. Well, there we have it. At last, we've come to the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Fascinating period in history, the relationship between the Soviet Union and Germany, immediately at the beginning of the Second World War, and how it rapidly changed in 1941, and the Soviet Union became an ally of the Western powers. Something which, of course, seems to have been forgotten today. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Poland Daily History.